everyone. Welcome to the second part in our video series working with credit and debt management expert Shante Copeland. We're so excited to have you here again with us today. And if you missed our first video series on where we discussed some of the components with credit and kind of issues that we're seeing in our country, Shante gave some great ideas for ways to be able to get a hold particularly of short-term high-interest credit card debt and things of that nature. Recommend that you go ahead and check that out. But I'm Ashley Rosser of Victory Fiduciary, and here we are with our second step of the video where Shante's going to talk a lot about just credit reports in general, kind of what comprises the scores, and then what we should be looking out for to make sure that we can have the highest level score available, because we know that that is really going to impact really what we pay and the amount of interest that we're going to wind up paying when we do have to take out loans. So I'm going to turn it over to Shante.
Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Of course.
Well, we're going to talk today about what is the credit score made up of. First, it's 10% of the inquiries. Inquiries are when you go into any business and ask them to extend you credit. They pull what they call pull, run, process. They have a lot of different names for it. But what they're doing is checking with the bureaus, which is Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, to find out what you are doing on paper with your credit. The second type is the type of credit, 10% of that. Credit cards, store cards, major visas, all those types of things, mortgages, they're all fall into their own category, but they make up a 10% account.
So let me just ask you a real question with that. So 10% type is comprising, is it, so does a credit card have a higher impact than like a school loan, or is there a hierarchy there, or is it really?
Yes.
Okay.
The credit cards, because they have such a fluctuating and they are what they call revolving, every 30 days it changes. A mortgage doesn't change every 30 days unless you have different things where they are bought out or the market crashes, then they'll have a fluctuation in your interest rate. But for the most part, it'll stay the same for the 30 years of the loan. Credit cards don't do that.
Okay, great.
Same with student loans. They're pretty much set until you pay them off. Only when they have a buyout or a drop or whatever,
Sure.
like our president is offering the payoff, those, they were lowered and then paid off.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And the length of credit, meaning the time you've had the credit. If you had it for 10 years and you were great for 10 years, that's an awesome grade that you'll get for having it and maintaining it so well. But it also holds against you if you keep opening and closing. You don't want to keep opening and closing them. When you close it, you take away your history. So let's just put it like this. For 10 years, you were a good friend, but if you wipe that all out, tomorrow I have to start over and be your friend. So you have to prove you're still worthy of being friends with them because you started your credit age all over again.
So that brings up an interesting point, because I know we get this question a lot. So if someone has a credit card, it was a high interest card, and they had a balance and they've paid off the balance of this card, then what should they do at this point? So they no longer, what would you recommend to someone who's either looking to improve their score or kind of, at least keep their score where it is?
Okay, since the amount of debt that you were given extended as a courtesy from the company, you want to maintain that. If you go down to $2 and you use 50 cents, you're at 50 cents, 50% utilization. If you have 50,000 and you only use 50 cents, you're at awesome risk. It just keeps a nice relationship with you and them.
So it would be favorable then to keep a $5 balance on a $5,000 card.
Yes.
That is not perceived to be more risky than...
No, and I also recommend using the card and paying it off to keep it open, because inactive cards get closed as well.
Okay, that's great. Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
And then the 35% is payment history, which is one of the largest percentages of your credit score. It can change or make it look as good as possible. How do you pay? Are you always late? Are you on time? Do you ever miss payments? On average, most people are like 120 days late on some credit cards because they think, oh, I'll catch up. and that turns into 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So when they go to look at it, because they will extend it to you, but they want to know they're going to get it back.
Sure.
Payment history is the biggest factor.
So I guess so what you're saying then is when you make a payment, everything you possibly can to not be late to get
Yes.
that payment paid on time, because otherwise that is going to be looking that you're a higher risk.
Because even if you
Some
pay
amount of money.
minimum, you're not late is your detriment.
Okay.
Late will cause all kinds of havoc on your report, and they will lower your rates as your credit balance if you're late too many times.
Okay. And
Paying, but still late.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you and I, we talked earlier too, when we talked about debt to income ratios. I know you were saying that's a huge component, like 30% of your credit score is your debt to income ratio.
Right.
And so can we talk a little bit then about what that actually means and what we should kind of be, what our target should be when we looked at DTI or debt to income, like what's the
Okay.
most favorable position to be in with that?
So let's say you make 100 grand. They're going to loan you up to maybe 50 because technically you can still pay that and live. But they'll let you have more. So it's up to you to say, hey, I'm overextending myself. But you have the possibility of owing this much. So we'll extend it to you, like mortgages, which is the large ticket items. Now cars, they're going at 50, 60 grand. So they look at that and say, okay, if I was to, they don't care about your other bills. Can you pay this loan off if I give it to you?
And so then what's a target then that we should be looking for percentage-wise of debt versus what your income is? What's it?
Homes, 40. Credit cards, 30. To buy the home, 10.
So if someone has a credit score and they have credit cards at this point that it's 50% debt to income, so is that going to negatively impact one's credit
Yes,
report?
because you don't look like, on paper, you don't have enough to pay us and live.
So on paper, you're overextended.
Right.
And so you're going to see credit score drops if you're
Or
short-term
no
credit.
more loans allowed. If you want to get a car, you can't. Because now, or you're going to have to pay the higher rate because you're a risk now. Because you already extended with these people 50 grand. How are you going to pay us?
Yeah, and so I think that that's something that people kind of, they forget about that. So they're just kind of applying for loans and for different things and not realizing that as that number creeps up, that debt to income ratio, I mean, these companies,
Right.
they look at that, and so we really want to make sure that we're keeping a tight rein, I guess,
Right.
on the types of loans that we have. Like we said, credit cards are going to have more of an impact, versus other types of loans like mortgages, and just the importance of making sure that on paper, our DTI, that we can keep that as tight as we can.
That's
Because
right.
otherwise it makes us just appear to be more credit worthy.
And
So-
even if you can say, well, I make overtime, they don't account any of that. They count what you actively make at your job. What do you make? They don't count your husband. They don't count your kids, the money in the home, which we do. Because
Right.
we all live here and we're all
Sure.
paying to keep it afloat. But they don't account for that. So they go by the person who's on the application. The other thing I want people to understand is if you have a high interest rate, call and find out if you can get a lower one once your credit score improves. You don't have to stay at the high rate.
Interesting.
That's the other thing.
Wow.
When you improve your credit today, you shouldn't be paying the bad credit rate. Now you have a 750. So you should get 750 rates.
That's
And it's a
interesting.
different judgment.
I don't think people realize that that's something that you can do to,
Yeah.
because again, imagine if you can get your interest rate cut and then you're still making the same payments that you were.
You're
That's
going
just
to
more-
principal.
That's it. So
And now you're making, you can go 23 years versus a 30-year mortgage. And you'll be done with the house.
that's
But
great.
to keep that lower rate is the only way you can actually do it, where it makes a difference.
And so can people call credit card companies the same way?
Oh,
to try to get rates
absolutely.
reduced?
The moment you see a fluctuation in your rate, I would call them.
Okay.
They're not going to say, oh, here's her again, she's calling again, he's calling again. What they want to see is, because they're pulling your credit anyway. Because if they see too much debt incurring on your thing, they will lower your rate without even contacting you. Because they're pulling your credit every
Sure.
time.
Okay, well that's great information to have.
Yeah.
So what tips then do you have right now for somebody who says, okay, I'm not even really sure where I'm at with my credit report, with my score. I mean, what's the first thing that somebody should do then to kind of start to try to take control of their credit score?
Okay. Most credit card companies have online banking now. And within the online banking app, there is a credit check, credit wise, credit whatever they want to call it, where they actually tell you what your credit score is currently for free.
Okay.
Or creditreport.com, you can get one credit report from each bureau per year.
Okay.
So what I recommend is, first part of the year, you get Experian. Second part, you get Equifax. Third part, you get TransUnion. During that year, while you're working on preparing things, it'll show the progression.
Oh, that's
And they're
great advice.
free. You don't want to pay for anything because you're already paying for your bill. That could go to your bill. So you want to find all the services that are available within your credit card that you currently have.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's say, all right, so we get our credit report. What do we do then to try to make some arrangements, or we say, okay,
Fine tooth comb it.
okay,
And I mean it. You take it, if you have to blow it up and make it large, because sometimes if it's a lot of lines, it's small. Put it on a computer screen, make it bigger so you can actually see it. Confirm that everything on each line is correct and actually yours. I've seen more times than not where the credit cards and the loans and different things don't belong to the customer, and they have to dispute it. That's when the dispute letters come in.
okay,
But that's down the road. But you need to fine tooth comb it. Make sure your address is correct, your phone number, your job information is on there. Where do you work? Your bank.
great. And so, and then if you find errors, then obviously then you can go ahead and you can submit letters saying, hey, this isn't mine, or hey, this was paid off. So I think that's an easy thing that people don't even realize. You need to check your credit report at least once a year for accuracy to make sure that things aren't on there that either should have never been, or maybe they've been closed out. I know, so we were talking earlier too, just about the fact that people don't realize that you can actually reach out to your creditors and try to make arrangements
Yes,
with them.
that's
So-
the biggest thing I offer. I recommend first, if you know you're drowning in that debt and you can't make it, they want to get some of their money back. They don't want to charge it off in collections because that costs them money.
Sure.
And you, because once they charge you, they charge you.
Yep.
So you got to pay for the legal fees and all the stuff that it costs to get those debts collected on. So you call them and say, hey, I don't have it, but I want to pay it. I want to stay in good standing. What that does is halt the reporting of your credit lateness. The day you call, they stop calling and saying you're late to the bureau. So now what happens? You're not delinquent anymore. You're working with them.
Okay.
Never fall apart on the arrangement because that resets it.
Sure. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's powerful because I don't think people realize that you really can take ownership of some of these areas of your
Yes.
credit. You know, being able to reach out and say, "Listen, I'm over my head. I'm trying. What kind of arrangement can we make?" And again, to stop those delinquencies, because again, that is going to be the first step in trying to begin to repair that credit score.
Right.
So I think that is great advice, and certainly, you know, the last thing that I don't think we've talked about yet is just when we talk about open credit versus available credit, and just again making sure that we recognize the fact that having those available balances tells creditors, hey, they're not overextended because they're not using every bit of credit
Right. You
that's
look
been
like
made
a better
available to
risk
them.
showing restraint in not spending it all. Because that's pretty much what they're doing. If we give her $50,000, she spends it all, she's not a good credit risk. But if she has 50 grand, she's only using 12,000 or
She's
5,000, she's responsible.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, I think these are really easy, you know, maybe not easy, but these are like tangible tools that we can be taking as consumers to make sure that our credit score is the most accurately reflective of the type of consumer that we are. And then again, if we see things that we don't like on our credit report, then all we can do is begin to kind of take those steps to try to
Right.
repair them. So I think that that's important. I think it's hard. Some people don't even want to see what's on there, and I get that it's uncomfortable to kind
Yeah.
of see. But really the first step in being able to make those repairs and those offers to the creditors to actually see, what's on there. Because in the end, it's only going to benefit you if you can reduce those interest rates, and then
Right.
eventually getting that score up to be more favorable for the people
Right.
that we're asking to lend us money. It will save us so much money in the long run. So
Yes, and
I-
it's okay. You can only change what you see, so make sure you see it all.
Awesome. Well, Shante, thank you so much for sitting with us and talking to us today about credit reports and what our score is comprised of. I think that was really beneficial. And so we are looking forward to the next time we get together and we can have some further discussions. Again, this was Shante Copeland. Here's her website here. You can always reach out to her. I'm Ashley Rosser of Victory Fiduciary. My contact information is behind me as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you.